morning. Thank you, Dinesh, for such an enthusiastic introduction.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's particularly it's a particularly timely thing, partly because a couple of days ago I was cancelled from speaking at another institute of higher education. The invitation to me by students was rescinded by the administration, and that's the fourth time it's happened to me. So I'm glad to see that most students and admin here, and I seem to be considered okay here. I happen to like talking to students. I think it's part of my duty to talk to students, so I try and fulfill any requests coming from students, so that's why I'm here today. And my topic today, well, I'm not going to do a speech as such. I really try not to make speeches or lectures, especially when I'm talking to students. I'm sure you get enough of it already every day. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you my thoughts on the topic that you've given me, which is about civic responsibilities, and basically give you some things to maybe think about. You might know some of this already, or you may not, and I'll try and keep it brief, and then after that we can just have question and answer. We'll try and leave as much room for question and answer as possible. Does that work for you? It's a nice small room. I'm so glad it's not some giant auditorium where people at the back can all fall asleep. Okay, I kind of moved it around a bit about civic responsibility. Do young children have a role? Young people have a role to play. Sorry, that's from your mom. You're still children, just children anymore. Well, the answer to that, of course, is yes. I think you have a big role to play. The thing is whether you are allowed to play it or not. When we have a country that's mostly, more than half, young people, to say that none of you have any role to play in our life, in the life of this country, I think would be a waste of resources, a waste of people, a waste of talent and everything. So my basic answer is yes, you do have a role to play. Let's just go through some of the things. Okay, what do we mean by civic responsibilities? Basically, it's all about being a citizen of a country. It's like a contract you have with your country provides you with some things, and you have something to give back as well. So it's part of your responsibility of being a citizen. It's about civic duties. Civic means public duties that you have with other citizens in mind. It's not just for you. It's not just you and the family. In a way, it's a bit like being in a family. I mean, your parents have some responsibilities and duties towards you, and you have some towards them as well. So this is just on a larger scale for students. So it's basically about what it means to be a citizen. So what is citizenship? You might have learned this already, but there are two ways of looking at citizenship. Two different views of citizenship, and you can see in different countries people do behave in different ways towards their own country or their view of their own country. One is what they call the liberal individualist conception, where it's all about the individual. It's all about what you can get from the state. It's more about your economic role. And the whole thing is about that you ought to be free to earn your own living, make your own money and all that without much state interference. It's all about, basically it's about self-interest. And in these countries, people tend to be a bit passive when it comes to politics. As long as government leaves me alone, I'm fine. You know, I will just do my own thing. I'll just... and the trouble with that is that it tends to be very, in a way, very selfish. It creates a lot. It's all about yourself and not about other people. So it's not about looking at things on a broader scale, what's good for the society as a whole. As long as I'm happy, I'm okay and all that, I don't have to worry about anyone else. That's one way of looking at citizenship. The other way, of course, is a more broad community type view of citizens, in that you're part of this whole family, and therefore you have to contribute to this whole family, not just for yourself. So what you have to do has to be for the good of the whole family, of everyone in your country. And it's about democratic participation. It's about, focusing on what's good for everyone, say what's good for the environment, or what's good for security, whatever, that sort of thing. And it tends to make people, because that concern for larger issues, and you're thinking of other people, it tends to make people a bit more politically aware, more involved in politics. There's a problem though that, a few people might be doing all the work and other people are enjoying the benefits of it, so it's not like everyone participates equally. So there are these two models, and you see different variations of it everywhere. But I don't know, if personally I would choose the second one, where we are much more community thinking, we think of everyone as part of our family, part of our country, and therefore everyone has to participate, everyone has an equal right to benefit from everything that the state provides. So, in Malaysia, our rights and responsibilities are derived from our federal constitution. This was kind of the rule book when the country was born. Okay, we're all going to become this country, and in order to live together, we're all going to follow these sets of rules. And it was something that was agreed on by everyone, right? I think a lot of people have forgotten that we have this. So I think one of the main things that we need a lot of education about our constitution. It's really been forgotten. In some countries, people are hyper aware of their constitution. In the US, they're very, very aware. They know what's in the constitution, what's the First Amendment, what's the second, that they know how to quote lines from it. But in our country, it's very, very low level education. So I think it's quite important. In some countries, it's a exam subject. Because I did my A-levels in the UK, I did British Constitution as an A-level subject. And that's not even really a written constitution. So they can have an exam subject of an unwritten constitution. I think we can have one of a written one like ours, what's in it, and to study what it all means and things like that. I think it's quite important. There are some groups that are educating people on our constitution. I don't know whether you've heard of the My Consti project. It's a bunch of young people. They are part of the Bar Council. They've started this project. I wish I had the brochures. It's called My Consti. And they do workshops and things to educate young people about the Constitution. And I really, really do recommend you invite them to come and do a workshop with you, because if you read the papers, there's a lot of confusion about what's in the Constitution. Some people saying this, some people saying that, And like many of these things, it is subject to interpretation. But a lot of historical study and all that, what was in the minds of our founding fathers and mothers when the Constitution was drafted. So, it's worthwhile studying. So, if you don't know your constitution, here's a few choice articles that you might be interested to know. I'm not putting everything, but just the ones that are interesting to know. Article 5, no person may be deprived of life or personal liberty except in accordance with the law. Meaning you can't be arbitrarily arrested unless you have broken some law. And it's not up to you to say which law it is. It is up to the people arresting you. So, in some countries, people just get kidnapped off the street. We don't have that here. We are following the rule of law here. We can't. You have to really do something to break the law. Mind you, there are many laws. There are all sorts of laws. I don't know how many of you doing law. Lots of laws. And sometimes you don't know when you can break one even. Because some people also interpret laws in funny ways. But the point is that the Constitution guarantees that you cannot be, just deprived of your life and your personal liberty. You are a free person unless you've broken the law, right? Article 8 is also a very good one. All persons are equal before the law and entitled to its equal protection. So between you and you, the law can't sort of differentiate you differently, treat you differently. We are all the same because we are citizens. We have these rights. We're all the same under the law. And this part is one of my favorites. It's except as expressly allowed by this Constitution, there shall be no discrimination against citizens on the ground only of religion, race, descent, gender, or place of birth. There are also a bit more, but this is more important. There are exceptions. I'm sure you know the exceptions. Affirmative action for some groups of people in this country, but generally, there is to be no discrimination against anyone on this basis. Gender is actually a recent addition, fairly recent addition within the last 10 years. Before that, nobody thought that it was necessary to put gender into it. That means you can't discriminate just because you're a woman. You can't be discriminated against because you're a woman, or because you're a man. In work, for instance, it does happen. Of course, it happens a lot. But what it means is that you can challenge it. You can challenge it because that's what the Constitution says. Mind you, we've had some funny cases. All right, sometimes we had this case where this flight stewardess sued the company because the flight attendants, female flight attendants, have to work only up to a certain age, and after that on board. After that, they have to be grounded, whereas male flight attendants can go on until retirement. Obvious discrimination, but the company wasn't having it. I won't tell you which one, but seeing as we don't have too many national airlines in this country, you can make an intelligent guess. So she took it to court. It went all the way up to the federal court, which is the highest court. By that time, this had come into the Constitution, but the judge ruled that this only applies to the public service. Which means if you work for the government, nobody can discriminate against you because you're female, but if you don't work for the government, they can. Does that, if all persons are equal before the law, equal protection? No. So I don't know why nobody's made a big noise about it, but it's, in this day and age, this is 2013, there's still people. So it all kind of points to how sometimes you have to educate judges about their own constitution. You'd be surprised how many of them don't know their own constitution. The theory being because they usually study British law, so they know more about the British constitution than ours. The same airline, by the way, will not take in female pilots. So, any of you who have ambitions to fly for the national airline, anyone female, forget it. Go to the other one, which has female pilots. Does it make sense today? No, but pilots are a boys' club. No, it's true, that's fine. Article 10 is the other interesting one. It grants freedom of speech, of peaceful assembly, and freedom of movement. And I put that in bracket with some exceptions. There are exceptions. I'm not putting everything. And the exceptions you have to refer to the laws that Parliament passed. Really, if any of you are going to become lawyers, do look at the laws that we have. There are quite a few that actually contradict the Constitution. As you know, about peaceful assembly and all that. So what does it all mean, for a country where Constitution is, I guess. Article 11. This is one a lot of people make a lot of fuss about. Every person has the right to profess and practice his own religion. Every person has the right to propagate his own religion, but not to Muslims. And there is freedom to carry on missionary work among non-Muslims. Which is why in this country we always say there is freedom of religion. Everyone can have their own religion. There is, however, Muslims are a special case. Whether we are able to respect that in the Constitution is an issue. Okay. Right. So, to me, this is according to me. How can you be a good citizen? I think by mostly three things: by being knowledgeable, by being aware, and by taking action. I think the days of, being passive citizens, and we're not, if we're not that type of citizen where, you're just into self-interest, there are so many things going on that I don't think you can just, take it without feeling something. If things go wrong, it's not always other people's fault. Sometimes it's yours too. So one by one, be knowledgeable. Well, I happen to think that school is a good thing. Both the formal schooling that you all are doing, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in a college, but I really do believe in education. There is no country in the world that can develop if they don't educate their people. Seriously, they don't. And by people, I mean all people. Not just men, but also the women. If you look at the correlation between a country's development and the number of women they educate, the literacy rates, first of all, and the number of women they educate, it's very clear. The higher the illiteracy rates, especially among women, the less developed it is. It's as simple as that. Because you need education to do the most basic things. You cannot, you be at total disadvantage without education. And I happen to think that it's not enough to just give basic education to people. You just have to give all the way through. I'll give you an example of how this works out. Yeah. I happen to be on the International Advisory Council of a wonderful, wonderful project called the Asian University for Women, which is in Chittagong in Bangladesh. The impetus was this, is that the founder used to work at the World Bank. The World Bank published a report that said that to develop any country, you have to educate girls. Because it's just impossible. You're wasting half the resources of the country if you don't educate girls. But he also realized that in many countries today, you can get primary education and you can get secondary education quite easily. A lot of countries are providing free or virtually free education to their people, particularly their girls, at primary and at secondary level. Places like Afghanistan is still a problem, but the rest they manage, and the benefits are plenty because when girls and women are educated, their families and the community benefits, because they learn how to be healthier, they learn how to manage things better, they educate their children, etc., etc. So the multiplier benefits of educating girls and women are there. But Kamal Ahmad, who is the founder of this university, realized that if you just educate people in primary and secondary level, all you're doing is educating them just enough to be able to work in factories, to make goods for the developed world, basically. You can't do much more than that. And there's a lot of demand for it, you know. Many developed countries have factories in all our countries, and they're looking for people who are just enough educated to operate the machine, but not so educated that they can't pay them very little. Yeah. So, but every country needs more than that. We need our engineers, we need our doctors, we need our professors, we need all our computer specialists. That's the way we develop, right? So tertiary education is really important. So it's a country that is going to develop has to provide tertiary education to as many people as possible. So that knowledge, I mean, don't waste your time when you're in school. I really think try and finish your education, because you know it's important. It is important. I mean, don't listen to stories about Bill Gates not finishing. That's an exception, okay? For every Bill Gates there is out there, there are millions of others who didn't make it because they didn't finish. Yeah. So I think a formal education is important, and you should do what you can to get all the formal knowledge that you can. But not everything is learned in the classroom, and you all know that. If you think about instances in your life where you learn something new, if you think about it, it's very often outside the classroom. It's an experience that you had. It might be a good experience, it might be a bad experience, but it was an informal experience, right? And that's where you learn, yeah? So there are many things that you can learn through the experience, whether it's unplanned, but it's better if it's planned. So if you get the chance, and I usually see Malaysian kids are quite good at this, just try and gain experience, whether to travel or to volunteering or work even, you know. It's really, my husband is from Indonesia, and he always remarks how it's quite common to see kids from families like you all, you know, sort of fairly okay and all that, who will go and get a temporary job at Starbucks or something like that. Yeah, I'm sure. How many of you have done that? Okay? But it's quite normal. But in his country, if you're the same level, if you come from the same level of families, you don't find it at all, because it's considered low-level job. But you know, it's good experience. I'm sure you know it's very humbling experience, but it's good experience. Not every little bit like this as an experience that serves you well for later. Some things may not benefit you straight away, but you never know, you know, how many years down the line, you remember something and it becomes, you know, it works out for you. So yeah, don't, I know it's nice to hang about and do nothing after you've been studying for a long time, but do find whether it's just to travel to another state. I'm so amazed sometimes how even within Malaysia people don't travel so much. Travel, do exchange programs, whatever. Go to Sabah, Sarawak. We know so little about our fellow citizens and notch it out my experience, because really this is part of the building blocks that makes you into a good citizen. Being aware of all parts of the country and all types of people. Volunteer work, of course. I'm sure many of you already volunteer for things. How many of you doing, volunteer for charities, NGOs. Okay, gap in experience. Fill it up. Lots of people are happy to have, you come and I'll talk about some NGOs a bit later, which you might find interesting. Yeah? And then pick up a skill. Pick up a skill in anything. It really doesn't matter. It took me until I was about 30 something to wake up one day and realize that I was not an expert in anything. And that's not a great feeling, actually. I think everyone should try and be an expert in something. And it doesn't matter whether it's stamp collecting, or playing chess, or playing guitar, or whatever obscure hobby or niche it is. As long as you're the one who can talk most authoritatively about it. It's and actually you'll find that the more niche it is, the better it is, because then no one can really, talk about it better than you, right? And it's really worth doing it because it gives you confidence, and it's a nice social skill to have. Things like music, dance. This is the way. It's not just for you, but it allows you to be with other people. It allows you to work in groups, so you learn how to work in teams, and that extends to larger communities. You realize that if you don't work together, it's not going to work. It's simply not going to work. Unless you want to do one-man plays, solo performances, all your life. Even then, you have to work with someone who does the music, someone who does the lighting, someone who, stage manages it. So, this sort of group things, fun things, just do it. It's really, really, I'm sure you're doing some already, but it's a good skill. Even if it's just, if you feel you're untalented, you might be talented in organizing things, That's something I learned much later. So I'm just telling you to try and develop that earlier. Okay, be aware of what's going on around you. I'm sometimes surprised that I meet people who don't read the papers, have no idea what's going on around them. Sometimes they know what's going on in America or something, but not what's happening in Malaysia. I don't know how, you can live in a cocoon like that and think of yourself as a contributing member of our country. You have to be aware. You have to be aware of what's going on. You have to know the basics, who is ruling the country, what they're doing, especially when it comes to you, especially when it comes to education, for instance, but a lot of things. And I know a lot of people find politics scary, but I always like this quote from Aung San Suu Kyi, said, even if you don't like politics, politics will come to you, right? The fact that you're here actually involved quite a bit of politics. There was debate about whether we should have private education, right? If they didn't have that, you'd have to go to a public university, right? And there's an issue there. Some of you may find you can't get into the public universities. That's a political decision, right? So you have to be aware of all the mechanics that brings you to a certain place. It's not just you. There are all sorts of forces in play, and a lot of it is political. So you have to know what's going on there, yeah? And to me, I think there's rights in the Constitution, but they don't mean anything if you're not willing to defend them. The Constitution says you have freedom of speech, but someone takes it away from you, and you say, oh, okay. So if everybody says, okay, let's just erase it from the Constitution then. What's the point? What is the point? Right? So it all has to have meaning to you. And when it has meaning to you, it is a political act. Yeah? And so it's not possible. I know there's this problem with the Universities Act, which says that You can't take part in politics. But my argument is that politics is not just about political parties. It really is not. Politics is about yourself, understanding how things work, understanding how decisions are made, understanding how you participate. It really has to start with yourself. There's no reason to join any political party. In fact, sometimes it's better, So I'm not a member and I like it much better. Don't have to wear uniforms and things. And take action. And by taking action, although I do believe that we have a right to it, and sometimes it is necessary, taking action doesn't just mean taking part in protest. Yeah, taking action means basically not just sitting on your butt and complaining about things. In Egypt, during the Arab Spring, there sprung up a particular political party called the Sofa Party. Is the people who are members of the Sofa Party are the people who sit on the sofa and go with their remote to the TV and make comments about everything that's going on, but they never get off that sofa. So if you want to join the Sofa Party, you're very welcome to it, but you're not going to make much of a difference, might get sold up. But I think also there are lots of things that you can do. And I think even the smallest things help. My organization, Sisters, we started 20 years ago by writing letters to the editor. Every time there was an issue regarding women that we felt we wanted to make a comment on, we just wrote a letter to the editor. And if you write it well and you give your points clearly and they publish it, then after a while people start noticing. And that's when you start making an impact. So even a simple thing like that. Now, of course, lots of people write, and they're professional letter writers, you see the same names over and over again, but they've just learned how to write those letters. So it is kind of an art. And nowadays you blog, you post tweets, you do FB and all that. I see a lot of food pictures, kitten pictures, and all that. That's all well and good, your party pictures and everything, but at the same time, it is a good way of passing knowledge on. And that's the way I see it. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, big time. I see it as a channel to broaden people's minds, So sometimes there is an alternative way of looking at things, and I think people should read it. I'll pass it on. And you start a debate, and the debate is very good. Of course, there are all sorts of people who are spoiling things out there, but basically, they're not going to make much difference. I was checking my Twitter timeline, and I found some trolls on it today, as I occasionally get. Looked up their their profile, and one of them got 2 followers, one got 43 followers. No need to worry about them. So it's a matter of keeping things in perspective. But yeah, you can do many things. Take action. Don't just sit on your butt, basically. Organize yourself to help those in need. You don't have to wait. I think there's a tendency sometimes we're waiting for someone to tell us what to do. We're waiting for someone to organize. You don't have it. You just need one of you or 2 of you. I'm going to give you some examples, but there's some people who've just seen a need and just decided, okay, I'll just go do something. And that's how it starts. And if you have a good intention, you have a good idea, people usually will come and support. Really, it's a lot easier. I mean, a lot of people say, I can't do it because who am I? It'll take so much money and that sort of thing. I think those are just excuses for not doing something. That's, sofa party people. So, and I think organize to fight injustice. If you see something that is unfair, that's usually the one that you need to do something about. Because it will be worth it. Even if you lose, it will be worth it. when you pick up so many skills, you pick up so much experience, you'll make so many friends, and you will feel worthwhile. I think in all the work I've done, that's been the best thing about it. You feel like a worthwhile person, you feel like a worthwhile citizen, and it's a good feeling. You know, it's intangible, but it's a good feeling. And be creative. You don't ever have to do things the same way ever. And I'm just giving you some examples. I mean, flash mobs were a big thing a while ago, but sometimes, they really work in the sense that it's not just about coming together and going, wow, and then going off. If you have something in mind, it really does a lot more. For instance, I don't know if any of you remember this. A couple of years ago, there was a church that got burnt. Very unusual thing in Malaysia, and with all the potential to turn into something really nasty. But number one, nothing really happened. And to me, I think I was very proud of Malaysia at that time, that we didn't just all go nuts. But a group of young people I know decided to do something very, very simple. To bring people together. They did this through social media, of course. They just asked people to assemble on a certain day, at a certain time, at a certain place, and all you have to do is wear a white t-shirt and bring a piece of string. And when we got everyone there, because the guy who organizes this guy called Zain HD, is very popular, he does this all the time. Lots of people came, all in white t-shirts, all sorts, all shapes and sizes from everywhere, and they all brought a piece of string. And when we got there, we tied all the string together and walked around and talked about peace. And it's very subtle, but also very obvious and very clever. The symbolics of a tying string. So you can think of these things. You have the intention, then you can find some creative way of doing it. Another thing that we did this year during fasting month, some friends and I were very concerned about some of the things that were happening during the fasting month, which were making people very angry, very uptight, very tense and all that. So, what can we do to bring people together? Bring solidarity. So we thought of something which actually we'd already done before. We call it Fast for Malaysia, where Muslims are already fasting. We invited everyone else to join in to fast. And it was very interesting because it started, we gather for sahur early in the morning, and some of us also had different buka puasa in the evening. It was very interesting because all the Muslim participants were just fascinated that anyone would want to fast, if you didn't have to, to just do it. And they were really, really encouraging. Whereas all the non-Muslims who participated also were interested to see how this felt, and then felt a lot of sympathy or empathy rather, for all their Muslim friends. And they're like, wow, so hard to do one day. How do you do this for 30 days? So it created a lot of really good feeling. And we did it through Twitter and Facebook, and it was really, really nice. Very, very simple. Didn't cost anything at all, except for, going to the mama and buy food, whatever. It's this sort of things that you can do which really contributes to your community and to your country, and really all these are created by young people. It's great. So I just want to talk to you about some NGOs that I really like, because they're doing some really good things, and they're really like good ideas, and really I think they're really doing a lot for Malaysia. This one makes me hopeful. Actually, not all are Malaysian, but anyway. This one, Start Society, it's an arts academy that reaches out to underprivileged children by giving them lessons, in the fine arts and performing arts. Basically, it volunteers these kids from low-income families from orphanages, they come to this place and they can learn how to paint, how to play a musical instrument, how to dance, how to perform in dramas and all that. And these volunteers teach them every week. And it's really wonderful because once a year they have a concert and they display their talents. And it's fantastic because not only do they pick up a skill, like I was telling you, you should have a skill, but it develops these kids in ways which are really, really, actually very tangible, that you don't realize until later. It makes them more confident. They work in teams, so they have to learn to be tolerant of each other and all that. It also helps them in their schoolwork, and because it helps them focus and everything. And they've now gone on. Many of them gone on to go to further studies. Not in this thing, but in whatever they want, because all that building up of confidence and everything helped them a lot. So this is a fantastic idea. They're just in PJ, and really, if you have any skills, you should volunteer if you can. And if you just want to go and see how they do things, go ahead. Because I'm really, really impressed by these people. They're just really great. Another one, this is not here in Malaysia, this is in Bangladesh, and this is one of my favorite discoveries. That's me with some of the kids from Jungle Foundation, and the guy on the right, on the left, is the founder. His name is Kovi Rakshan. And I'll tell you this story because it's inspirational. It's really inspirational. Kovi comes from a family that's pretty well off in Bangladesh, much like you are. And after school, he wanted to do law, but he decided he didn't want to go overseas. His parents could afford to send him overseas to do law, but he didn't want to. He wanted to stay in Bangladesh, and so he did an external degree, law degree. And when he finished, he decided he didn't want to do law. He didn't want to be a lawyer. But he wanted to do something. He had a real dream. And his dream was, he had looked at like India and Pakistan and all that. What was the advantage that their people had over Bangladeshis? And it was the fact that they could speak English. And so they could do many more things. They could do call centers, they could do a lot of things, participate in global business and all that because they speak English. Bangladesh, you may or may not know, is founded on a language. It means the country of the language, of the Bengali language. So always been great emphasis on Bengali, which is fine, but the English is poor. And therefore, Kovi thought that they were at a disadvantage because of that. So his dream was to start a school teaching English to slum kids, because that's the most disadvantaged. So he started, when he was 21, he started a school in a slum. And he actually went to live in the slum. And started, and the curriculum is not even the local curriculum, it's the British GCSE curriculum. And he started, he got some teachers and started to teach the kids English. And those kids that you see there, those are the first batch. They're now about 10, 11, 12, thereabouts. They are slum kids. They live in the slum. Their parents are road sweepers, domestic workers, day laborers, that sort of thing. Very, very, very poor. But if you look at them and you see how neat, you would never know they were slum kids. And I can tell you that English is wonderful. They speak really good English. Kovi is a special person, really. He's 28 now. He has 6 schools, and thousands of kids go through them. But there's one person who is so creative and so tries to find a creative solution to any problems. One of the problems he found early on was that some kids would go missing. They come to school and then suddenly you won't see them anymore. So instead of just leaving that, he went to find out why they were missing. And what he found out was that because their parents are, they don't have permanent jobs. If there is no job in that area, they move. They move to another slum. So of course the kids go along. When kids go along, because their education is interrupted. So, to solve that problem, he decided to do something about it. He said, how do we keep the parents here? So what he did was, in the school compound, you see, the garment industry is the biggest industry in Bangladesh, making clothes. You see how many of your t-shirts are made in Bangladesh. He started a little workshop in the school compound, where parents could come and learn skills in garment making, and also they have a little workshop where they actually make clothes to send overseas, they send to Australia. So the parents get to stay there with their kids in the same school. So the kids don't move and their education is not interrupted. And it's so amazing. So he gives the kids all uniforms, and then he found that after a week or so, the uniforms are filthy, just totally filthy. Why? Because the parents, to wash them or whatever. So now each child gets a hygiene pack with soap, with toothpaste and everything. So that, that's why they all look so neat. It's a wonderful school. I went to visit it. Even the littlest kid would never pass me by without saying good morning, ma'am. All of them. It is just an incredible thing. And one of these girls, and I forget which one, her name is Bitty, she's just been on her first overseas trip to speak at an education conference. And she's 12. And I tell you, they're perfectly, I met them all in a class and I was talking to them. Their English was very, very good. And the other thing was that they're not shy at all. They ask me questions, I ask them questions, what do they want to be, and they want to be all sorts of things. One boy wants to be a rock star because he's good at dancing, then a marine engineer and a pilot and all sorts of things. They have ambitions. These are slum kids who would never have had ambition before. So it's truly inspirational. Another wonderful thing that COVID does, and this is really how, being aware of things going around you really works. He realized that volunteerism in Bangladesh is very low. People don't volunteer. So he decided to start an organization for young people called Volunteers for Bangladesh. And he gives them room in his first school here for them to meet and think up campaigns and all that. And there's one wonderful campaign that they did for International Children's Day last year. You've probably never been to Dhaka. it's a megalopolis. It's huge. 10 million, 12 million people, whatever. And there are a lot of street kids, very, very poor kids who are out on the streets selling anything, flowers, books, magazines, sweets, all sorts of things. And because Dhaka, the traffic is always so bad and the traffic jam, you're always stuck like that, and you always see all these kids coming around trying to sell you something. Lots and lots of them. Of course, they don't go to school, and of course, if they depend on what they make on that day in order to be able to eat, or for their families to eat even. So if they don't work, they don't eat. Yeah. So for International Children's Day, Kovi and his staff, they rounded up all the street kids, all of them, there are thousands, and gave them a day off. Took them to a theme park and had a whole day of fun like kids should have. Go on rides, eat ice cream, everything for the whole day, right? Meanwhile, his volunteers for Bangladesh, who come from more middle class, upper middle class families and all that, those kids take over the street kids' place. So they're out on the streets, all in the same t-shirt, and selling the flowers and the books shows and whatever and all that. It's very interesting. And all the money they make for that day is given back to the kids. And it's now become such a big event that they get a lot of sponsorship to do this, because taking the kids to the theme park, you need money and sponsors and all that. The CEOs of the companies also join them in the streets. And I watched a video and it's really telling when the replacement kids who are about your age and all that, nicely dressed, speak well and all that, go out on the streets and try and sell flowers or whatever to people. And these are people sometimes in trishaws and things. They get scolded. Very often they get scolded by people who say, "Why are you doing this? You speak well, you dress well, you're obviously well. Why are you doing this? Why are you begging?" And they're trying to say, "No, we're not begging. We're trying to sell something. You have a choice. You want to give us some money for this or not? It's up to you. But we're not begging." But it's very interesting that people get upset if they see young, neat, educated kids doing this, but they don't get upset if they see dirty little kids, slum kids doing this. It's a very strange way, when you think about it. It's a very strange way of looking at things. It's wrong if you go out, but it's okay if they're uneducated and dirty and hungry and all that. It's okay for them to beg. There's something wrong with this world if it works that way. So yeah, they're also happy to do volunteer exchanges, by the way. So if any of you are interested to go and do an exchange with Jago in Bangladesh, I highly recommend it. You'll be inspired like nothing else, really, seriously. He's only 28, Kobe. So you don't have to be as old as me to do anything. All right, so just to sum it up, what does civic responsibility mean to me? It involves participation and participation in the life of your country, which includes all the other things. I think respect for other people is really, really imperative for other citizens and also non-citizens. We have a lot of migrant workers, refugees, foreigners in this country. I think they deserve respect too. It's not one way. I mean, you cannot get respect if you don't respect other people. Ensuring opportunities for all. I think, we all like to complain about how some of our opportunities are limited by this, that, or the other. But what do you do to ensure that opportunities are for everyone? Do you do the same thing? Also limited? Well, if they can do it, I can do it too. That just creates a spiral that goes down and down and down. So you have to make sure that you are also non-discriminating, right? And I think caring for our environment is really, really, I know you all do a lot of stuff probably on the environment. You probably learn a lot. It's very neat, but do you actually implement it? That's the main thing, just we throw things away and we complain all the time, but we don't actually do it ourselves. So, again, what's the point? So, these are some quotes I found which I thought were quite nice. Citizenship is a tough occupation which obliges the citizen to make his own informed opinion and stand by it. Informed opinion is, to me, the catchword. People have opinions, but really if it's not informed, there's no point. It means someone else can attack you and take it down and you'll be left feeling like a fool. So be informed. There can be no daily democracy without daily citizenship. You're a citizen every day. You have to be a good citizen every day, and then you have democracy. Yeah, Ralph Nader. There's no such thing as second-class citizenship. That's like telling me you can be a little bit pregnant. I kind of like that. Yeah, who said there's first class and second class? You might feel like it sometimes, but you should claim your right to be regarded as a full citizen. Yeah, always. So I think that's basically it for me. Thank you very much. Okay, now exercise your civic duty and ask me questions. Got mine? Any questions?
Anybody?
Anybody?
On?
Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Unfortunately, I'm an international student, so
That's not unfortunate.
I'm not civil,
Okay.
but I would still like to ask a question. Let's just say on behalf of all my
Where are you
class
from,
members.
sorry?
I'm from Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, so this also would apply for my country, but I want to ask. You said something about Article 11 also saying, you can spread your religion to everyone but the Muslims. And then there is another article you said that freedom of speech and expression and all religions should be considered, everyone is allowed to practice their religion. Now, my question is, if my religion practices teach that I should spread my religion to everyone around me, and the people around me are Muslims, saying I shouldn't spread my religion to Muslims, is that not putting a barrier to my religious practices?
I suppose so. You are governed by the laws of the country, you have to be aware that the law of the country says that you can't do that. So if you are caught, then you have to expect that the law is going to come.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know that's the law, but since you're all for fairness and you were saying, about justice, I'm asking in your own view, is that article fair for all religions? Like saying, oh, there is a higher religion and others can mingle with themselves?
I don't think it actually says one religion is higher than another. It just says that, you can't do it to Muslims. You're free to do it to anyone else if they're accepting. And that's our constitution and our law. So you are not, I guess you're not bound by the same constitution because you are not Malaysian, but you're still bound by our laws. So
what if the Muslim should ask me about my religion?
then you are welcome to explain. And it depends on how convincing you are.
What if I'm caught explaining the religion?
You have to make a difference between proselytizing and explaining. If someone non-Muslim asks me about my religion and I'm explaining it, I wouldn't consider that proselytizing. And similarly, the other way around. But I think if you actively went out to recruit people, that would be considered proselytizing.
Thank you. If I should add, would the police consider any of those when arresting me?
Well, I think you have to make that differentiation. You weren't proselytizing, you were just explaining,
Are we making the differentiation in jail or something? Thank you.
Well, just be aware there is a law.
A few other questions. I should try other people. Okay, one of the questions.
Are you asking for everyone, or
On the behalf of the Student Council,
this on behalf of the student council? Oh, does everyone else get a chance to ask? Okay. All right. You collected questions, is it?
yes.
Oh, okay.
You've said a lot about civil. This one is for myself and the Student Council. They love me so. It's for all of us. There was nothing said about international, laws for, the international expatriates or students or any international person in the country considered under these laws. Do we have a right to enforce, these civil rights for ourselves, like freedom of speech against, anything like that?
Okay. Because I was given the title of civic responsibilities, I basically took it as duties of a citizen of this country to this country, you know, basically. So I really was not considering duties of foreigners in this country, you know. I guess, I mean, I'm not a lawyer. All I know is that if you're here, then you are bound by our laws, that's one. But you're not bound by our constitution as such, because you're not a citizen. So you are bound by the constitution of your own country. But it's normal that if you travel elsewhere, then you have to follow the laws of that country, whichever you're in. I mean, you can't break the law in any country and say, I'm not a citizen, therefore I'm not bound. Within the borders of that country, everyone is treated equally under the law. Yeah.
Okay. Do I get the chance?
I don't know. I mean, how are you going to work it? I don't know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome.
Anybody else? Questions? Students?
Lecturers.
Lecturers? Oh, okay.
Lecturers can ask questions.
Well, I'm not sure whether lecturers are allowed to ask questions or not, but I'm asking on behalf as I'm a citizen, you know. Okay. First of all, of course, I'm a local. My name is Servi. I would like to ask regarding the freedom of speech. Okay. Lately, there have been a lot of issues, you know, the freedom of speech. Okay? And my issue is that is our speech, our opinion, if it is really makes sense, really like making the practice to become a law. Like last time I studied in government universities, you know, and there is one issue whereby student can really represent parliament. Is that like our thought will be like considered in order like to make a law in Malaysia?
Oh, do they consider your opinions when they're making law?
Yes.
Yes and no. Actually, they're supposed to, because your parliamentarians are supposed to represent you. So the first person that you should go to give an opinion really should be your MP, and then you tell them that they have to represent you properly in Parliament. That's the ideal. Unfortunately, I think most MPs are dealing with drains and roads and things like that. That, you know, when it comes to policy, they're not. So the other way that people do things, of course, is through what we call advocacy or lobbying. And that's what a lot of groups do. For example, people like PAGE, have you heard of PAGE, the Parents Action Group for English? They have been lobbying for English to be a choice in our schools. And you gather information, you do research, and then you present papers on it at various fora. That's how you do it. At Sisters, we are particularly focused on the Islamic family laws because we think that they've been amended in ways that do not benefit women. So we've done all our research, we send memos, we send letters to editor. It's a long process. It's a long process, and it doesn't always work. But it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, because sometimes finding allies, the right allies, picking MPs that are friendly and asking them to support you and that sort of thing. Yes. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, exactly. You answered the question, and I really impressed with the quote, but related with politics, If in case that we ignore politics comes to us.
Yeah.
Very impressed with that, because one thing is that, if in case I want to be a citizen, I'm aware of all the issues happening around. But if in case I voice out, it become a big issue. Like for example, the few years ago, there's an issue on one of these government students. She voiced out regarding one of these issue in University of Auditorium, Malaysia. Still remember the quote of listen.
Yeah.
Become a big issue. But then, based on my own opinion, is that she has an idea, she wanted to convey later, something related with education, but it ended up politics goes to her,
Yeah, but when you see that, that video went viral, and how many people supported that woman? Everyone supported the student. So I think she won.
Yeah, exactly, she won. But what happened later part to her? Heard that news that she's no more student to University of Utara Malaysia. She was studies has discontinued, and she need to defer to another colleges.
Yeah. Well, that's but that's the thing. I mean, when this happens to one individual, does everyone else stand up for that person, or do we just leave it? Do we just leave it to that person? I mean, this is the other thing. I mean, a lot of people say to me, "Oh, Marina, can you take up this issue? Can you take?" And I say, "Okay, fine. But if something happened to me, who's going to stand up for me?" That is the real test. So when that happened to her, did anyone protest?
Basically, we did because we are afraid that
Well,
something might happen to us.
Well, I think, we are very lucky in this country, that if things happen to us, it's like, and I'm not downplaying how bad it is. Okay, we lose our place in university or might get fired from a job. In other countries, people just disappear. They just disappear. I was in Argentina last year, and I went to this place called the Mothers of something. It's a date or a name. And these are the mothers of all these young people, students, NGO workers, volunteers, who in the 70s just disappeared and never seen again. We don't live like that. We don't understand that sort of circumstance. But the mothers come out every Thursday without fail, 30 years later, still demanding to know where their kids have gone. So, compared to all these people, we are nothing. We are comfortable. And I think one of the problems is that we are comfortable. Yeah? In other places, people are willing to die. They're not scared, We are scared of what, So to me, I know people say, I can say this because I'm comfortable and I'm protected. Yeah, okay, fine. But that doesn't mean I can't say it, out loud. That we have to look at the global scale. We have to, we are very lucky. And really, it comes down to, am I the most important person, or is my country the most important thing? And to me, I think I'm not important. I'm not in the least bit important. My country is more important. So what I'm doing for my country as a whole is far more important. It doesn't matter what happens to me. So that's the attitude that we have to take, I'm afraid. I know it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy. I sympathize with lots of people. But as long as everyone is thinking, I can't do it because I'm going to lose my job or whatever, nothing will change. Nothing will change. So, it's a decision that every individual has to make.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the floor? Martha? Oh, good.
I just want something based on how you started the voluntary work.
Yeah.
When first you thought about voluntary works, right? Do you think you thought that it will be difficult? And what you feel is that you want to help the women, and how you make it out is like Jalan Foundation, right? You want to help the slum kids. So we started up own foundations, right? So when you thought about Malaysia, if as a student, for example me as a student, if I want to start up a own voluntary work, how you will encourage me to start it up, like make it up like assembly among the publics, or
How to do it?
how to deliver it to the public. about the voluntary works that I want to be successful and to deliver it. Like Miss, you were doing voluntary works for women's rights, like AIDS, HIV's foundation. So how you get that thoughts and how you deliver it to the publics?
I think my answer to that is the Nike slogan, just do it. If you start thinking of it being something big, I think you'll never do it. You have to think of things in terms of scale. Kobe didn't start off thinking, I'm going to do 6 schools. He started off by thinking, I want to teach some slum kids English. And that's very small scale, easy to manage thing. So if you want to do something, don't think of it like, I got to tell the whole world about it. I just have to go out and do it. Maybe go and give free tuition to some underprivileged kids in whatever subject that you're good at, and just do that. And then you will find, ways in which you will expand. Because you will start seeing, if I added this, it will be better. If I added this, it will be better. And it will just grow organically. I think too many people think that they need to have the structure first, and then only they start. Everything must be in place first, then only I will start. But most of the best, I guess in a way you can call them social entrepreneurs or whatever, they just started. They just did something. Prof. Yunus of Grameen Bank, how did he start? He was talking to some people, very, very poor people, and talking about their problems, and they said, well, if you only had a little money to start off, you can start a small business. And they mentioned a sum that was so small that he could just take it out of his pocket and give. And that's how the whole microfinance thing, all of this Grameen thing started. It's as simple as that. For me, I really have to say that I'm not that entrepreneurial in that way, in the sense that I don't plan to do. I have some ideas actually now in my head, things I want to do. But when I first started, for example, with the AIDS Council, it really was a phone call. Someone called me and said, can you come and join and help? And I went in not knowing at all what I was in for. It was about AIDS, and I had this idea, I want to do something for AIDS. And I just went to this meeting, and they made me the chairman. Just like that. It was just literally being dropped into the deep end, literally, and or dropped off a cliff or something. Luckily I didn't crash and burn. And once I said yes to that, I just kept myself open to learning all the time. Because they only had one goal. They want Marina in so that people will pay attention and people will give money. That's all. And for me, when I started out on the first day, that's all I was thinking of also. And then I realized it's very hard to get money for AIDS, no matter who you are. Why? Because people are ignorant. Therefore, I got to solve the ignorance problem. I got to talk to people about AIDS, what it is and all that. To do that, I have to learn. I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? So then we went from there, and then suddenly it was 12 years on. And that's really how it works. It's got to be organic, or else your heart won't be in it. You won't find yourself completely committed to it. If someone just tells you, do it like this, you have to find that way to do it yourself. And I just do it. Just do it. Do you have a special skill? Can you teach sewing to people? Maybe, I don't know. Just do it. Even if it's just one person you're helping, it will come. It will really come. Thank you.
All right, last question. Anybody?
question is very simple. We talk about all these rights through our constitution. There seems to be a lot of limitation of these rights through various acts of parliament. And today we're talking about the crime prevention bill that's about to be tabled. How do you evaluate the performance of the government in protecting the rights of that is enshrined in the constitution? That is may the previous prime minister or the current prime minister, how do you evaluate performance? You may give any, just a juicy question.
It is. And I don't think there's a simple short answer to that. I guess, how do you evaluate? You can only evaluate if you have the knowledge, right? For instance, the bills that are going through Parliament right now, there are a lot of very sneaky stuff in there that most of us wouldn't know about unless there were people who are actually actively looking at them and telling us about it. So, in the first place, we need to be wanting that information, and number two, we should be supporting people who are giving us that information. I think that's quite important. They're doing us a service. And we should make noise about it. You said this and then you're doing this, it's contradicting. You have to point out the contradictions. And I don't think our people are dumb, they can see this. So, when there are inherent, contradictions like this, they will be able to see it once it's pointed out to them. So, how do you evaluate? Well, the ultimate evaluation is an election, right? I mean, that's your report card, isn't it? Fortunately, we have to wait 5 years and all that, but that's okay, everybody needs the time. But yeah, I think, like I said, exercise your responsibility as a citizen by telling people about it, by being aware and all that. I mean, we cannot be passive anymore. We around the world, people are, waking up and not being passive anymore. Even if the price is high, even if they're not going to win, but they are saying that they want to have a say. And us here in our relatively comfortable situation here, what's our excuse really, So yeah, I think evaluation is going on all the time, every day, pass, mark, fail. I think that we also sometimes get into the situation where one thing they do badly colors everything else, and therefore when they're doing things right, we also don't give credit. I think one of the biggest challenges for us all, I find, is to be objective and to be fair and to evaluate fairly. Where people do things right, we have to give credit. If they do things wrong, then we have to attack them. But not, one or the other all the time. I think that makes us sheep in one way. So yeah, I was just watching this yesterday. I think we need to make a lot of noise about it. All the sneakiness, it's not transparent, obviously. I'm trying to push things through. Okay, now you see why I get banned from public university, right? I hope that answers your question. Sorry, it's a very big subject, very long. Yeah. Okay, one more last one.
I have read from your blogs that you attended the last Bersih rally.
Yes.
And
Last two. 2 and 3.
Do you encourage young people to actually join in these rallies, considering that it's deemed illegal by certain parties? And how do we help address the young people's concern that going to these rallies maybe they'll get caught or maybe they'll be considered doing something illegal? How do we address these concerns?
Number one, I don't think there's a general rule about this. Okay, I think each one has to be evaluated for its own merits, each case. I don't think we want to be the sort of country where every little thing we go out on the streets. I mean, for me, I had to think a lot even about both the ones that I attended. Deemed illegal by some people, to me, is a very funny statement. Either something is illegal for everybody or it's not illegal for everybody. It cannot be legal for some and illegal for others, right? So, yeah. Well, it's in the case of the last two, I thought it was a good cause. I know people have tried and gotten nowhere. So it is an expression of people's wants, people's voice, and I thought it was very necessary at the time. And besides, we have the right to go. I think I was very annoyed at the demonization of people who went as being thugs and hooligans, because I was there and I know there were all sorts of people, young, old, from everywhere, you know, lots of aunties and lots of young people. So it is really truly representative of all Malaysia. For young people, I think you need to weigh the reasons why you want to go. First, you have to believe in the cause. That's ultimate. If you don't believe in it, don't go. You know, just go for the hell of it. For what? You know, you have to understand that it's not easy to go out there, to sit out in the hot sun, to risk, you know, being tear gassed and whatever, for a cause, you know, that you don't believe in. What for? So you have to believe in the cause, and you have to know why. Secondly, well, you have to understand the risk, what might happen. I think in both cases, we actually went out with the idea, especially the second one, that no, I couldn't possibly do it again, you know, because we were wrong. But I think for most people, up to a good deal of the time, we really thought it was going to go fine. It looked fine. So it was, I mean, when I left, by say 3, when I left, there was nothing happening. I've been very lucky, I never got tear gassed. So my street cred is a bit low, because I haven't been tear gassed yet. You know, we all thought, no, it's fine, you know. People just went out, made some noise like that, and they went home. That was it. We didn't know that there was one area where, you know, all sorts of strange things were happening and resulted in it. So I think you have to weigh each situation for your, you know, for whether you want to do it yourself and what are the risks you're going to take. I think that's important. I'm not sure that everything is worth going out for, but you know, think about it before you go. I mean, the first one I actually went because I knew a lot of young people were going, and I felt I couldn't stay home and just worry about them. I was very afraid. The first one, I really was afraid. I was seeing all the signs that there might be violence, but I knew lots of young people, including my daughter, who was going out, and I thought I would feel terrible if I was at home safe and all these people were out there getting hurt. So that's why I went down. And then it was fine. The second one, I decided from the beginning I was going to go. But yeah, I think it is quite an individual choice. Educate yourself first, and then weigh the risks and decide. But it's kind of nice. It's to be in solidarity with so many people. Okay.
From me again. Sorry.
Privilege.
Sorry, I read a lot of your works, your blogs, your talking is straight, and I sort of became a fan and waited so long for this day. So I'm not gonna just allow a lot of the millions of questions I have go through. So I'm gonna make it statement, quite long, and a lot of questions could be derived from it. That way I can try to push everything together and make it a last one question. First, you said you encourage young people to participate in politics, to make a change, a positive one.
Not necessarily party politics, if they are qualified that.
Okay, if they are qualified, but not students, young people in generally, to help the country. There is a concept, especially in developing countries and underdeveloped countries, that politics is a dirty game, and then some say it's not a dirty game, but the people who play it are dirty, and on and on. But for students or young people who are going into politics, how would you encourage that they go into it and come out clean? Because most people go into it with good intentions, to make a difference, a positive one, but end up making a terribly negative. So, and then I've been in Malaysia a while, and I've noticed a lot of people fighting for civic rights and against politics, politicians, and sexism and discrimination and all that. But no one really fights for that in a less government, like close to schools and from family levels. And I think if the problem should be treated at the top, which honestly, like they say, a fool at 40 is a fool forever. There's a level of badness a king gets, and it's probably not reconcilable. But at a level like this, don't you think there should be more institutions fighting to train students, like government or student council, to be more fair and less sexist and less racist? And from family levels, even from when children are young, like babies, to be less, there's no organization fighting for that and trying to train that. And also, last one.
Calm down.
In a lot of your blogs, I read a lot of your reviews. A lot of people keep asking you, how do you reconcile your relationship with your father? And you always say you have a good relationship with him. I find that very hard and disturbing. Because I myself, I protest against a lot of things, and with my dad and mom, and everyone, that has conflicting views to it. And I find it very hard to maintain a good relationship with those people after that. But you somehow do it, so I'm asking for an advice on how to do that.
So many questions.
I like the last one.
Okay, I'll save that. There is a relationship, I think, between equality or inequality in the family, with equality or inequality in where you study or work, and with inequality or inequality in society at large. So basically, to me, it's not possible to be sexist and non-racist. You'd have to be both, or not both. You find that people who are racist are often also sexist, and every other there is. And if they're not, if they believe in equality between the sexes, for instance, they usually tend to believe in equality among everyone else as well. So all this is related, I reckon. And the family is often where it starts. My organization, Sisters, we are working for justice and equality in the family, because we believe that if you have justice and equality in the family, then you will have justice and equality in society as well. So there is quite a lot of work being done in it, and I think it's quite key. And you're right, if you cannot look at society as a whole without also looking at other groupings or institutions where all these things also happen. But I do think that it kind of all has to happen at the same time, because you can't wait for the family to reform before society reforms, or society as a whole reforms before the family reforms. Very often the state takes the lead, and that's how things change. If you look at, say, Scandinavian countries where they pretty much instituted gender equality, everything else follows. Yeah, so it's kind of a two-way sort of thing. What else did you ask for before that? I'm saving the best for last. Before that?
The politics being a dirty game. How do
Oh,
we
yeah,
do
yeah.
it without coming out dirty ourselves?
But I don't think it is a given that if you get into politics that you will naturally become dirty lah. You know, I think there are some people who, you know, manage to uphold their ethics and principles and all that and throughout their political life. I think it's some people that punishes the whole lot. And it's unfortunate, you know, because I think you can't get away from politics, as I said, but because of some people, you know, there was some survey that said politicians were the least trusted people in the country. And that's kind of understandable, but what do they do to regain that trust? You know, they have to build that trust again. And that's also why people don't want to go into it. Why do you want to go into, you know, a field where nobody's going to trust you? So I think again, it is up to the person wanting to get into this. You know, you go in and think, oh, I'm just going to become like them, then nothing will change. I go in and I'm going to be different. I'm going to bring something new. Then maybe it will, you know. So I think that's no supplementary questions. I know what your last question is. Okay, everyone's curious about this. Okay, I don't know what your dad does, but is it fair to assume that he's not the Prime Minister of Nigeria? He's not.
He's a reverend pastor, so he's a governmental, religious.
He is a public figure. Okay. I think, you know, when you have parents who are public figures, then it has a different dimension. And I think for me, in our family, we kind of separate the public figure from the personal. My dad is my dad, you know. Because of him, I'm here. I can't do anything about that. I can't disassociate, not that I want to, because I'm tied to him forever, right? He's responsible for my being alive, for my education, for everything. He's also responsible, including my mom, for a lot of the values that I hold. And I'm grateful for that, because when I was young, they taught me some really good values which stay with me to this day. About always telling the truth. You know, when I was little, like you know, you get really like, you know, God will cut your tongue off if you tell lies, you know. So, you know, really when young you get that, you know, never to tell lies. So to this day I can't bluff very well. About working hard, I was always told that you cannot expect to get anything for free, you have to work for it. So you always used to laugh when they, you know, enter all these competitions in the newspaper hoping to win a ticket to somewhere and all that, and you just laugh, like, you know, because the chances of course are very, very low. And it's not something that that you really have to work for. So, you know, the equation between hard work and rewards has always been there for me. You know, even volunteerism was a value that was taught because I always saw them being volunteers at various NGOs and things like that. So, I mean, you know, I always tell people I grew up with these values and I still have these values. The fact that I might have differing views is, to me, irrelevant, because, of course, we all grow up differently, you know. He grew up in a different generation, post-war, etc. I grew up in a different generation. I went to the UK to study and all that. And there are all sorts of influences and all sorts of different things you read and people you meet, etc. I think we have to remember that we all have our own agency. You know, we are not just the product of our parents. We are also product of everything else around us, and therefore we have a right to think our own way, right? So that to me explains me. But how we get on? Well, when I see my dad, for the most part, he's just my dad. So he's not the Prime Minister. So basically, I think he thinks I have a right to my views, and I think he has a right to his. So I guess that's why we don't have big arguments or anything. I mean, and I take care. Publicly, I certainly never say I do not agree with him. I mean, you can troll to everything I've ever said, and I never say that because I respect him. He's my dad. Whatever anyone says, I think he still did a lot of things for this country. But you know, it's less a big deal for us than it is for everyone else. You know, maybe it's his personality. You know, I mean, people are different. But other people seem to make a bigger deal of it than he does. So he'll say things sometimes that sounds like he's scolding me, but I think that's more for public consumption. He's like, yeah, I have to say that sort of thing. But, you know, I understand that. I think if you grow up with politics, you understand when things are meant for politics and not meant for personally. So yeah, it's I can't explain it better. You know, I hope that I think, you know, in a way it comes with age. I hate to say this, but I think once you set on the path of your adult life and you've done things for yourself and you've achieved things for yourself, your parents tend to kind of realize that you're no longer a kid, and therefore you're your own person, and therefore you have a right to your own views. I mean, I'm old enough to be the mom to all of you, you know, so I think I've earned my stripes, so to speak. So yeah, so my dad was saying somewhere, he went to buy some things for his he went to a bathroom shop, and the people in the shop proudly told him, because I told him to go there anyway, proudly told him, oh, you know, Marina comes here too, you know. I said, oh, my daughter is so famous, you know, or infamous, you know. And that's all he would say, you know. And I'm kind of very happy when people do that to him, you know, sort of tell him that I'm also quite famous now. But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you exactly how. I don't know your dad, but I do think that with time, as long as you don't maintain the relationship, whatever it is, maintain the relationship. You have a good one. There you go. You know, there are oblique ways of doing it. There are oblique ways of doing it. First, you talk about the things that you like that he has done. You know? Talk about that. I think it was really good you did this, or you said this, and all that. And then later on, you know, when they're happy, and then you talk about things that maybe, you know. So it just means a little bit of thought. But yeah, again, and you have to speak from knowledge. I think they always respect your knowledge and authority on certain subjects. So yeah, that's all I can really say.